Hello, we're going to talk about equity and corporations, not in sole proprietorship or partnership. So we're going to talk about the equity section in the balance sheet when it's a corporation, okay? يعني تكون شركة مساهمة, okay? So I'm using chapter 15 from Intermediate Accounting book by Kieso. These are the components of equity. So we have two primary sources of equity, as you can see. Contributed capital, which is the shares, ordinary shares and preference shares. And when they are issued at a value greater than the par value, we say it's share premium, okay? We're gonna see how we journalize the issuance, okay? Now, what's the difference between ordinary shares and preference shares? Ordinary shares represent the residual corporate interest that bears ultimate risks of loss, receives the benefits of success, not guaranteed dividends nor assets upon dissolution. شو يعني؟ يعني الordinary shares بيكون عددها كبير، أوكي؟ وبيكون البار value لها القيمة بتكون أقل in comparison to the preference shares. كمان، أوكي؟ الordinary shareholders هم اللي بيتحملوا الخسارة، أوكي؟ وكمان they are not guaranteed dividends nor assets upon dissolution. شو يعني؟ It means if I want to distribute dividends, بدي أعطي أرباح على الأسهم for the shareholders, okay? First, I'm gonna give the preference shareholders, and if there is anything left, okay, it's gonna be given to the ordinary shareholders. So it's not guaranteed, okay? Nor assets upon dissolution. يعني لما تنحل الcorporation, okay? Now I have assets. What shall I do with the assets? I need to sell the assets in order to pay the debts, and anything left will be given to the shareholders, okay? First, we're gonna give the preference shareholders, and if there is anything left, I'm gonna give it to the ordinary shareholders. So again, the ordinary shareholders, they are not guaranteed to get anything from the assets or from the dividends, okay? Preference shares usually have a higher par value and less quantity of ordinary shares, okay? So again, مثلا, for example, if I issued ordinary shares that have a par value of $1, I issued the shares for $4. So the extra 3 will be in the share premium, okay? The par value will be recorded in the ordinary share capital, okay? Now, the second source of equity is returned earnings, okay? So usually we take the ending returned earnings from the returned earnings statement, which is beginning returned earning plus net income less dividends declared equals ending returned earning, okay? Then we deduct any treasury shares. Treasury shares means what? When I purchase my own shares, يعني أسحب أسهمي من السوق، يا إما بدي أنا أعلي سعر السهم أو I want a certain shareholder not to have more than 50% of my shares. Okay, issuance of no par shares. So we have this example. Video Electronics AG is organized with 10,000 ordinary shares authorized without par value. If Video Electronics issues 500 shares for cash, يعني أنا أصدرت أسهمي مقابل cash at 10 per share. Okay, it makes the following entry. So when you issue shares, يعني I'm issuing shares, I'm selling shares, so my cash will go up. Cash will increase in the debit side because I'm gonna receive cash. So أنا عندي I issued 500 shares at 10 per share. So it's 5,000. Now in the credit side, it's share capital ordinary because I don't have par. Okay, as I said in the beginning, if I have par value, it's going to be the share capital, and any extra extra amount will go to the share premium ordinary. But here you don't have a par value, so you're gonna record all of it in the share capital ordinary. Now Video Electronics issues another 500 shares for 11 per share. Again, there is no par value, so cash will go up, equity also will go up, share capital ordinary will go up. 500 times 11, it's 5,500. Okay. Now, issuance of stated value shares. Stated value, it's similar to the par value. يعني you cannot issue your shares at a lower value than this. Okay. So some countries require that no par shares have a stated value. If a company issues 1,000 of the shares with a 5 stated value, add 15 per share for cash. Okay, so أنا بعت 1,000 shares. I issued أصدرت 1000 سهم. Okay, the stated value or the par value, it's 5. So this is what should be recorded in the share capital ordinary. Okay, share capital ordinary will be recorded at 5 per share. So 5 times 1,000, it's 5,000. Okay. Now, how much cash you're going to receive? You're going to receive 15 per share. So 15 times the 1,000 is the cash you received. So 15,000. Now, the difference between the 15 and the 5, okay, which is the 10 per share, the 10 per share will go to the share premium ordinary. Okay, so any extra amount will go to the share premium ordinary. Okay. Now, issuance of shares with other securities. يعني, for example, if I issued ordinary shares and preference shares together, okay, we have two methods to record these entries. Okay, the first one, it's called proportional method, when the fair value for both shares it's given. Incremental method, when the fair value of one type of shares is given. Now let's see what's the difference between the two. Okay, Ravonet Corporation issued 300 shares of 10 par value ordinary shares and 100 shares of 50 par value preference shares for a lump sum of $13,500. Now he's giving you the lump sum price, يعني the issuance price or the cash you received is $13,500 for both types of shares, يعني للordinary وللpreference. Okay, now you issued 300 shares of ordinary, the par value is 10. Okay, and you issued 100 shares of preference and the par value it's 50. So if we multiply 300 with 10, it's 3,000. 100 with 50, it's going to be 5,000. So the total is 8,000. The difference will go to the share premium. Okay, the difference between 13,500 and the 8,000 will go to the share premium. But which share premium, ordinary or preference? Okay, now to decide the amount allocated to the share premium ordinary and the share premium preference will be decided when you have the market value for both of them. Okay, now the ordinary shares have a market value of 20 per share and the preference shares have a market value of 90 per share. Okay, so when both fair values or market value سعر السهم بالسوق for both types of shares it's given, I'm gonna use proportional method. Okay, يلا خلينا نشوف how. I will write here the number of shares. So I have 300 shares of ordinary and 100 shares of preference. Okay, what's the fair value for each? 20 for the ordinary, 90 for the preference. So the total will be 300 times 20 is 6,000, 100 times 90 it's 9,000. The total fair value it's 15,000. Okay, now what's the amount to be allocated to the ordinary and to the preference? Because again the total amount of cash I received it's not 15,000, it's 13,500. Okay, so I'm gonna allocate the 13,500 to the ordinary and to the preference as follow. Okay, wait. Okay, so as you can see here, the cash I'm gonna receive at issuance it's the lump sum price اللي هو 13500. okay. Now share capital ordinary and share capital preference will be recorded at par. okay. So share capital ordinary, we have 300 shares, the par is 10, so the total is 3000. And share capital preference, it's 100 times the 50, so it's going to be 5000. So as you can see, they are not balanced, because here in the debit side you have 13500 and the credit you have 8000. Now the difference should be allocated to the share premium, ordinary and preference. But how much will go to the ordinary and how much will go to the preference, I'm going to decide based on the fair values. Okay, so as you can see, we calculated the fair value for both of them. We got 6000 and 9000, so the total is 15000. How can I allocate the 13500 to both of them? Based on the percentage. Okay, here, so I'm going to divide 6000 by the total fair value by 15, so you're going to get 40, and 9000 divided by 15,000, it's 60%. So I'm gonna allocate the 13500 based on these percentages. That's why it's called proportional. Okay, so 40% of the 13500 will go to the ordinary shares, and 60% of the 13500 will go to the preference. Okay, so 13500 times 40%, it's 5400. 13500 times 60% is going to be 8100. So what should I do now? Again, the amount allocated to the ordinary shares, it's 5400. 3000, it's the par. So how much will be the premium? The difference. 5400 minus 3000 is going to be 2400. And for the preference, the allocated amount is 8100. Now the par is 5000, so the difference will go to the premium, which is 3100. So now the total for the ordinary, it's 5400, okay, which is here, and the total for the preference, it's 8100. Now if I add them up, I should get 13500. okay, so 500 and 3 plus 2 5 plus 5 10 plus 3 it's 13, so it's correct. Okay, now again, when I have the fair value or the market value for both types of shares, I can use proportional method. What if I have the market value or the fair value for one of them? I will use the incremental method. Let's see how it works. Okay, now Ravonite Corporation issued 300 shares of 10 par value ordinary shares and 100 shares of 50 par value preference shares for a lump sum of 13,500. Now the ordinary shares have a market value of 20 per share, and the value of preference shares are unknown. So as you can see, the market value for the ordinary shares, it's 20 per share, but for the preference shares, it's unknown. So I cannot use the proportional method. I have to use the incremental method. Okay, so now I'm issuing shares, so I'm gonna receive cash. So cash will go up in the debit side by 13,500, which is the lump sum price. Now I'm issuing shares, so equity will go up. So share capital ordinary and share capital premium will increase my equity in the credit side, and they should be recorded at par. The par for the ordinary, it's 300 shares multiplied by 10, so it's gonna be 3000. For the preference, it's 100 shares multiplied by 50, so it's 5000. Now, how can I know the amount allocated to the ordinary and to the preference? So I have a total of 13,500. They should be allocated to the ordinary and to the preference. Okay, so I'm gonna go and write the fair value or the market value. So I have 300 shares of ordinary and 100 shares of preference. I'll multiply them with the fair value. I have the market value only for the ordinary, so it's 20. So 300 times 20, it's 6,000. Okay, and the fair value for the preference, it's unknown. Okay, so how can I do it? Okay, so I'm gonna say that the 13,500 will be allocated to the ordinary and to the preference based on this. I know that 6,000 is the total fair value for the ordinary. So the total fair value for the ordinary will be 6,000. The rest will go to the preference. Okay, so as you can see, the total, it's 13,500. I'm gonna deduct the 6,000. I'm gonna get 7,500. So the total par for the ordinary, it's 3,000. Okay, the total amount allocated to the ordinary is 6,000. So the premium will be 6 minus 3, so it's gonna be 3,000. While for the preference, the total amount allocated is 7,500. The par is 5,000, so the rest will go to the premium, which is 2,500. Okay, so now I need to double check. I need to add the credit side. The total should be 13,500. So 3 plus 3, it's 6. 5 plus 2,500, it's 7,500. So the total will be 13,500. Now again, if I have the fair value or the market value for the ordinary and for the preference, I'm gonna use proportional method. But if I have the fair value for one of them, I'm gonna use the incremental method. Incremental, the differential. Incremental يعني difference. Okay, now shares issued in non-cash transactions. يعني I'm gonna issue the shares, but I'm not gonna receive cash. I'm gonna receive something else. Now, the following series of transactions illustrates the procedure for recording the issuance of 10,000 shares of 10 par value ordinary shares for a patent of Marlowe Company in various circumstances. Marlowe cannot readily determine the fair value of the patent, but it knows the fair value of the shares is 140,000. So it is the value for the patent. Okay, so the patent, it's an asset. Patent يعني براءة اختراع. It's intangible asset. So patent will go up on the debit side for the value, which is 140,000. So if you don't have the fair value of the patent, you have the fair value of the shares, it's fine, you're gonna use it, 140,000. So share capital ordinary, again, we always record the share capital ordinary at par. So 10,000 times 10, which is 100,000. The difference or the extra amount, the additional amount, will go to the premium, share premium ordinary. So 140 less 100, it's going to be 40,000. This is the second scenario. Marlowe cannot readily determine the fair value of the shares, but it determines the fair value of the patent as 150. So again, if you don't have the fair value of the patent, you have the fair value of the shares, so you're going to use one of them. Okay, so it determines the fair value of the patent is 150, so the patent will go up on the debit side by 150,000, and the credit side, your equity is increasing by share capital ordinary. Again, it should be recorded at par. So we have 10,000 shares at 10, so it's gonna be $100,000 or euros. Okay, and share premium will take the difference, so 150 minus 100 is gonna be 50. Marlowe cannot readily determine the fair value of the shares nor the fair value of the patent. An independent consultant values the patent at 125,000 based on discounted expected cash flows. Okay, so he calculated the present value for the expected cash flows. Okay, and it's 125. So patent again will go up by this value. Share capital ordinary will be recorded at par. Any extras will go to the share premium ordinary. Thank you for watching. If you have any question, please leave a comment. Please like, share, and subscribe.